going to a place where we haven't gone before on volleyballmag.com. Brandon Rosenthal is the coach at Lipscomb University. His team is ranked weekly in our volleyballmag.com mid-major poll, I'm happy to say. And Kyle Walton is the coach at Transylvania University in Lexington, Kentucky. Brandon, by the way, is over in Nashville. The two of them debate some stuff now and then on the Net Live, and we talked about coming on volleyballmag.com and kicking some things around and what they've been wanting to do, and finally convinced me, yes, let's do it. To talk about the merits of the Pac-12 versus the Big Ten. And Kyle, I think in true presidential debate format where your parties have talked to Brandon's people, we've decided you would go first. So, Kyle, from transy.edu.
I won the coin flip, let's say. Supporting the Pac-12 or supporting them on this in this side of the argument, it's easy and it's exciting. I think the biggest thing you have to go to in terms of figuring out the difference in the two conferences is how the schedule is set up. And the schedule being, in the Pac-12, you're playing every school twice except for two schools. You only play them once, and that happens every single year. I think the biggest difference with that is that in the Big Ten, you're playing basically a round and a half. So you play 7 teams twice and then 6 teams once. And that creates a very unequal, interpretation of how deep your conference is. And, there's I think there's a big difference in the bottom half of the Big Ten as opposed to the bottom half of the Pac-12 because, we can look back last year, Arizona State being in the bottom, is the bottom team in the Pac-12 right now, but they were number 5 in the country at one point last year. They were in the top 5. So that range is unbelievable in terms of how a team can be in the Pac-12 and then the next season be in the Pac-12.
Well, let me tell you that.
I'm sorry.
So last year Arizona State was one injury away from maybe being a national champion. That's how good that Arizona State team, and then everything changed. But Brandon, I've got to imagine that you're going to cite the fact that half of the Final Four was the Big Ten last year. Of course, half the Final Four was also the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, what Kyle is not telling us, and rightfully so, is just that. I mean, we're talking about the best. Who wants to be the best? And, let's face it, when you talk about the Big Ten, you're talking about the top 3 teams in the country right now in Minnesota, Nebraska, and Wisconsin. And again, there is nothing wrong with the Pac-12. I want to go on record of saying that right now. I don't want any of the Pac-12 coaches calling me or anything like that. The truth of the matter is we're talking about who do we think is going to be the national champion. And when it comes down to it, the Big Ten stands alone right now. It truly is amazing. I understand Kyle's argument about double round versus kind of an unbalanced schedule, but the truth of the matter is we all know the Big Ten is an absolute grind. Right now, the top 3 teams, as I stated before, Minnesota, Nebraska, Wisconsin, and that's not going to change unless one of those 3 teams really loses outside of those 3 teams. So the truth of the matter is, as we go into the tournament, you have those 3 teams, and then you throw in a smattering of other teams with the likes of Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan State, Purdue. Sitting on the bubble right now is an interesting case that Kyle has brought up before, is Illinois. And then you got, a surprise team in Iowa. And right now, Indiana is in. They haven't been in for a while, but they're in, and that makes Kyle nervous. He doesn't want to talk about it. You were talking about 11 of the 14 teams possibly getting into the NCAA tournament. That's going to be a tough one to talk about.
At this point, Indiana would be in. Of course, Iowa's a great story. We had a good video chat last week with Bon Chemansky, the coach there. Go to other places on volleyballmag.com to watch that. But you talk about the grind. The grind is the same though in every league. Brandon, for you and the A-Sun, I mean, it's ridiculous night in and night out. It doesn't make any difference what league you play in. And let me say this, since I get to jump in here a little bit too, I've been lucky enough to see most of the teams either in person or on TV multiple times. And the rankings 1, 2, 3, like you said, Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin. Nebraska is the best team in the country. In my opinion, there's Nebraska, and then not that far behind is Minnesota, Wisconsin down here, and then there's a huge drop way here below the computer where everybody else comes in. Kyle?
Here's my rebuttal to this, and he says that this is an absolute grind. That it is a grind, but you can look at the Big Ten schedule, and if you have to go to Penn State and Rutgers, that's not a grind. That's one match that weekend, unfortunately. And I can point to Cal beating Colorado this past weekend. Cal beat Colorado at Colorado, whereas Colorado beat the team that's winning the Big Ten right now earlier in the season and beat Illinois. And Cal is at the bottom of the Pac-12. The bottom of the Pac-12 is so strong that you don't get days off. There's no days off. There's no, unfortunately, Rutgers, Northwestern, like those type of schools, they just don't exist. And my question is, and this is a great way to put this, how many teams do you need to subtract from the Big Ten to get to the level of the Pac-12 conference? And if you have to ask a question like that, then that means the Pac-12 conference is a deeper and stronger conference.
Kyle Walton from Transylvania University making friends all over in Big Ten. It has to be pointed out, Rutgers is over in the Big Ten, and Northwestern is too, and it's really a tough road for those two programs. But Cal, 5-35 the last 2 years, and was 0-4, 0-5 before it finally broke through against Colorado. And so there's still no gimmies. And the one thing that you brought out that has to be pointed out is the team that's in first place right now in the Big Ten is Penn State at 6-0, the only unbeaten team left in the league. All right, Brandon, we got just a couple seconds left. You get the last word.
Well, you kind of tipped my cap, so to speak, with the Penn State talk. We want to talk about Nebraska. We want to talk about Minnesota. We want to talk about Wisconsin. And then all of a sudden, lying in the weeds is Penn State at 14-3 and 6-0 in the Big Ten. I mean, what are you going to do when all four teams are in the top 5 here? Truth of the matter is, you want the national champion. It's coming from the Big Ten. Kyle wants to talk and can talk about how deep the Pac-12 is, and that's cute, that's nice, but the truth of the matter is we want to know who the winner is. The winner's coming from the Big Ten, and, Kyle, I'm sorry.
Somewhere, Dan Aykroyd and Jane Curtin are smiling about this, and for those of you who don't get the reference, well, I don't know what to tell you, but I'll tell you here that Nebraska's going to win the national championship. If anybody beats them, it's an upset, but I love the stories that are going on in San Diego, North Carolina, and some of the other schools that you guys mentioned. Don't sleep on Kansas, which was in last year's national semifinals. All right, Brandon Rosenthal, he's the coach at Lipscomb in Nashville, and Kyle Walton at Transylvania in Lexington, Kentucky. Fun stuff, gentlemen. We will pick a different topic, once you guys pull all the arrows out of your butts from the respective conferences. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you.